Welcome to the Accidental Business Owner podcast, the show that lifts the lid on what it really takes to grow, scale and successfully exit your business without losing your sanity, soul or savings. Real stories, raw lessons, proven strategies. Let's dive into this week's episode. Hi, Jay Allen from the Accidental Business Owner podcast, and today I want to talk to you about contact, wait out. For those of you who've been watching or listening to the podcast for a while now, you'll know that I started my career in the British Armed Forces as a rapid deployment soldier, as a combat medic. There's a series of communications that will happen on a battlefield that is familiar to that of a soldier and perhaps far less so to that of a civilian. And one of the most chilling and important messages that you will ever hear in the field of battle is contact, wait out. What it actually translates to is whoever is the call sign operator or the radio handler, whoever is sending the message, has just come into contact with the enemy and is alerting other people around them to the fact that they've now engaged in battle. Wait out usually refers to, or initially refers to, we've come into contact and therefore everybody else should be aware that the battle has now started, and therefore the heightened risk to other people, or the risk to other people has been heightened. Wait out means, and we're going to assess the situation to determine as to whether we can handle it ourselves, and if not, where and how to send resupply. What else is required in order to be able to fight through and win the battle. And therefore, as the receiver of that information, it's massively important to be able to, one, be far more vigilant of your own surroundings, and two, to be ready to respond to something different to that you were expecting to be doing that day. It might be that you've already got a plan in place. It might be that you've already got an agenda going on. It might be that you're already doing something important yourself. But to be conscious that at a moment's notice, because the environment has changed, that we might have to respond to it and park everything that we're doing, or to at least review and revise to say, and what would be the impact if I dropped this in order to be able to address that instead? So how does that translate to you and your business? Well, quite simply, over the last 5 years, I've witnessed, and I'm sure you have too, two significant changes in business. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been a number of others along the way that I could list as long as your arm, but two that I wanted to be able to highlight to you as key and important measures or timeframes in our business journey together. First of all, let's go back to Brexit. And after the vote, the referendum that was held in the UK, the decision to be able to leave Europe and to move back to, one, remain a single currency, but to sit outside of the European Union. And the subsequent impact that had, not just on British business, but on the supply chain throughout Europe and beyond, as to whether you were Brexit ready or Brexit not. And the huge impact that had on the supply chain and the abilities to be able to get product and service into the UK effectively, easily, efficiently, time-bound and less costly just went out the window. I certainly witnessed one of my own businesses have a catastrophic collapse as a direct result of poor planning for Brexit. We had an import business during or pre-Brexit. It used to buy in bulk, it used to land in Hull docks, it used to be broken down and sold on as individual units, drop ship as it's often referred to. It wasn't through Amazon, it was through a different platform altogether, and it was very specific for the logistics industry. It was a very specific product for the commercial logistics industry. But we were growing a decent brand. We were doing okay for ourselves. We got some some regular clients that were increasing their order value. The lifetime value was, as a growing business, it was doing okay for itself. And then Brexit came along. And whilst I and our business had done everything that we possibly could, we'd followed all the guidance and advice, we'd been on the government website, we'd done all the necessary paperwork and applications to be able to ensure that we were Brexit ready, I hadn't appreciated as to how ill prepared our suppliers were for day zero, D-Day. And when we ordered product to be shipped into the UK, in order to be able to meet our obligations and requirements, some of it on an SLA, a service level agreement with some of our larger clients, where we were committed under contracts to being able to provide a certain amount of product on a regular basis, when we were told that instead of a 4 to 5 week delay period between order and receipt and delivery of, it would be 8 months. We were going to breach all of our SLAs by some margin and have some compensations to pay because our supplier had product and couldn't get it to us. Now, the other thing that happened was COVID and lockdown. And between those two, we saw a significant shift in not only what business does or how business does, but the impact it's had on suppliers, businesses, consumers, the market, the trend. We've seen two significant shifts, and there's been multiple others that have happened along the way, including what's happening in America and the Trump and Trump 2, as it were, and the reinstatement of power of Trump with regards to the war in Russia and Ukraine and what's happening in Gaza. There are so many other happening things around the world that as a larger business, we would do something called a PESTLE assessment. Now, as a smaller business, you're probably aware of SWOT, and if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'll know how much I hate using the acronym SWOT to be able to look at the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats within a business. For me, it is absolute garbage, and you should never, ever, ever complete a SWOT assessment under any circumstances. If you're ever required to, for lending purposes or whatever else, then simply do it backwards and do a TOES assessment. I'll quickly cover that so it doesn't become confusing. The problem with strengths and weaknesses, or SWOT as it were, if I ask you to list all of your strengths, you'll happily write down a whole host of things and start to feel really confident about who you are and what you're capable of doing. We've got some good strengths. Now I'm going to ask you to write down your weaknesses. And before you know it, you've counterbalanced all of the strengths that you've got with some of the things that you're not so good at. And before you know it, you're probably feeling less confident than you were before you started the exercise altogether. But it's okay. We're now going to talk about the opportunity that's available to you, and you're going to list all of the opportunities that are available to you, and you're going to start to feel a little bit more enthused about what you could do as a business. And then before we finish, I'm going to say, and what are all the threats to you as a business? And you're going to counterbalance all of those opportunities. And by the end of it, you're going to feel far more cautious and worried and uncertain about being able to do the thing that you wanted to do in the first place before you did the SWOT assessment. It's just bonkers. Yet, if I ask you to turn it on its head, if I ask you to start by saying, what are all the things that are threatening you right now? List all of the things that are a threat to you in the business. Now let's find some opportunities of things that you could move towards and away from the threats. What are the things that you could move towards? Where are the opportunities for you in the business? Oh, okay, that's interesting. Now, before we move towards those opportunities, let's just understand what are some of the weaknesses that are within the business right now. What are some of the things that you're going to have to be cautious of or be nervous about or address? What are some of the things that are going to challenge you on moving towards those opportunities? Okay. Now, let's look at your strengths. Let me understand more about what you're really good at and how you could move forward for some of those opportunities, being conscious of your weaknesses and your threats. And all of a sudden, you feel more empowered, more capable, more opportunistic than you did before we started the assessment. It's exactly the same thing done in reverse that created a different outcome, a different energy, a different belief system. Now that's SWOT. When we get to a bigger business and we're looking at a national business or a global business, then we're also going to introduce this thing called PESTLE and a PESTLE assessment. Now, in brief, it simply means what's the political risk to you and your business? What's the environmental risk to you and your business? What's the S is for social impact? What is the social impact of you and your business in the local community? L is for legal. What is the legal challenge that you might face as you continue to help and grow your business? Are there different laws in different countries that you have to be considered and aware of? T is for technology. What are the technological risks to you and your business? And then the last E is for, we've done environmental, it's for economic. So what's the economic risk? What's the economic reward for doing the thing that you're giving considerations to? So we look at a business from a larger, bigger perspective and the risks from a variety of different circumstances to identify as to how you're going to be able to move forward more confidently, more assured than perhaps you did if you just stuck your finger in the air and went for it. I'll tell you what, we're going to take over America. Well, perhaps you want to stop and give consideration to that and come up with a plan on how you'll be able to do so. So contact, wait out. Why have I called an episode that, and how does it apply to you? The simple fact is that there are known knowns and there are unknown knowns. There are things that you can mitigate for. There are things that you can plan for. There are things that you can review and revise of the risks and challenges that you're expecting to face as you grow. Be that, how do I recruit more people quickly? How do I create more loyalty from those staff to me and my brand? How do I communicate my message to a larger audience or to a different environment? How do I have the finances to be able to take on a new building if we've outgrown the one that we're in? There are a whole series of things that we can review that are expected risks or challenges to you in the business. They're the known knowns. They're the things that you ought to be planning for on a day-to-day basis. But there's also the unknown knowns. Before it went to referendum, we'd been in the United Nations and been part of the European community for almost 40 years. The thought of not being part of Europe was neither here nor there before they chose to vote on a referendum and opted to leave. There was no risk of the cost of oil going through the roof because there wasn't a war between Russia and Ukraine until Putin decided to invade the border and cross into Ukraine. There are the unknown knowns, the things that, like COVID and the lockdown, there are things that happen outside of our control that will have a direct impact on us and our business and our community. So contact, wait out is about being able to have a method in place that says, have I given considerations to all of the known knowns? Can I step forward confidently, perhaps by doing a TOES assessment instead of a SWOT assessment? How do I set myself up for being confident in moving forward effectively? And yet, how do I have the ability to remain nimble and quick on foot? How do I have the ability to continue to assess and review the direction of travel that I'm taking and have the support available to me if I need to call upon it for when the unknown knowns happen? And ironically, that's what we tend to do. As a business, we tend to be there to support people through the known knowns and the unknown knowns. With the QRF, the quick reaction force, the ones that are able to be able to drop ship into your business for a short period of time, be that a VIP day for one single day, or for 3 or 4 months to be able to help review and revise a particular element of the business. We don't have to be battalion strength and working alongside you for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years at a time, although some of our clients in our legacy programme have been with us for 10 years plus, because they see us as the joint ally that we are to support them in their growth journey. The heavy armour that is brought in to defend and help to be able to move, to be strategic, to be able to be that bouncing wall should you ever need it in the future. But contact wait out is about being able to be resilient. And if Brexit, the war in Europe, COVID, what's happening elsewhere in the world, if that is anything to teach us in a business, it's surely to expect the unexpected and to say the businesses that survived during lockdown, the businesses that thrived at a period of time where everybody else was struggling, weren't just the ones that sold hand sanitizer and a face mask. They were the ones that understand the importance of being of service to our local community, to remain relevant to the people that need our help and services, and were quickly able to pivot to remain relevant. And if I'm a restaurant owner and I can't open my restaurant anymore, then how do I turn it into a takeaway to send restaurant meals to your home so you can still benefit from what it is that I have to offer and the reason why you used to come to me in the first place? If we can't take the Mohammeds to the mountain, then we have to bring the mountain to Mohammed. Contact wait out is about simply looking at your business through a different lens and saying the best times to be able to have a resilience plan is when you don't need one, not when you're scrambling around because the next problem has occurred and wondering as to what to do next. If you'd like some more help and support, then simply we've got 2 free assessments, the Business Freedom Assessment and the Business Scale Assessment. And both of them will help you to identify the opportunities and risks, the strengths and weaknesses, and some technical guidance on what to do first in order to be able to address those specific issues. God bless, take care. I hope you never have to use your resilience plan, but I sincerely hope that you've got one and it's up to date for when you do. If you haven't, then it's time to give me a call. See you again next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Accidental Business Owner podcast with me, Jay Allen. If today's episode sparked a thought, challenged your thinking, or gave you a new tool to grow smarter, share it, rate it, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of transformation. God bless, take care, and I'll see you again next week.